Hi, I'm Greg Dell here with attorney Stephen Jessup, and we're going to discuss disability reviews of Guardian Insurance Company. And Stephen, as you know, on our website we have reviews of many disability companies, and in this particular video we're going to focus on Guardian. We love when people leave reviews because it allows everyone to know what's going on basically with their experiences with Guardian. It allows people to learn how to avoid a denial, learn how things they can do if they've been denied just from the experiences of these other claimants, and it most importantly keeps Guardian kind of like a watchful eye from the community, not just from lawyers like us who try to go against them, but most of what we do is behind the scenes unless we're filing a lawsuit, which then obviously becomes public record information. But in these videos we like to talk about our views of the companies as well, and our views come from the claims handling side, from how we see Guardian is handling these claims, and you've been doing this a long time already, and we see trends, in how things are going. So we're doing this particular video, obviously, end of 2023, and that's real time as to what's going on, and all of our reviews of Guardian are dated as well. So you may see things go negative, positive, positive, negative, because it changes. But the reason it changes in terms of the views of a company are because of the management style of the particular company. Guardian is one of those companies that used to, or at least in my opinion, had more positive praise than negative. For some reason in the last few years or whatever, the trend seems to be acting more like a high volume disability insurance company, like a Unum, Prudential, Hartford, than a more boutique, smaller style company. So interested to get your feedback in terms of, of the 40 different disability companies. When someone calls you, you have an opinion, kind of like if someone called you and said, hey, I have a car, do you want to take this particular car for a drive? Hey, I love that car, no, I don't like that car. But when they call with Guardian, where do you fall in that scale of, from the worst to the best, and what you think you could do for a claimant?
It's a mixed bag. I think the first thing I always like to find out if this was an individual policy they bought on their own or something through their employer. If it's something that they got through their employer, it used to be, if we had shot this 3-4 years ago, I didn't have a lot of cases. Now to this day I don't have a lot of denials from them compared to say Hartford, Prudential, or Unum. But there is noticeably an uptick in denials and kind of like the level of aggression in which they deny cases on the employer-provided side. I don't know if they're writing more policies, so there's just more coming in, or it's just a culture change in the company itself that's leading to it. On the individual disability side of the house, I have generally overall more positive thoughts on them. They are in my opinion, one of the better insurers. But even then, at times, I scratch my head, and I think going back to what you said, it seems like they're evaluating the claim not as a small boutique company looking for reasons to approve, but now more that volume company looking for reasons to kind of deny. It's almost like they used to keep their group disability and their individual disability claims processes separate, but now it seems like there's almost like this weird hybrid blending of styles in the two, if that makes sense. So where it used to be, okay, you have a great company, if there's nothing that really draws red flags for me in a case, generally it's smooth sailing. And I think that's still to the point, but I've noticed that there's been a lot more scrutiny in things that normally we wouldn't see, it's like whether they're looking for more, ulterior motives or secondary gains arguments. And this could also just be a reflection of, coming out of COVID and, even the economy as a whole, whether or not, losses in profits and stuff like that in these policies. So there's a lot going on. So generally, if someone tells me I have Guardian, I'm like, okay, it's one of the better companies. Then it's dividing it to individual versus group policy. And individual, I still have, I would say, a more positive feel towards the group side. It's certainly becoming more negative. I feel like they're getting in line with like Hartford on the level of aggression and looking and trying to deny cases.
And whereas more so in the past with Guardian, and also Berkshire is what they sell, have sold a lot of individual policies, but I think they tend to try to brand more things as Guardian now. Universally, it used to be a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt to the claimant attitude, and now it seems more like if you have a reason to deny the claim, then either not pay it then or just delay it while we continue to really look into are positioned to support denial by trying to find extra evidence to support that. And those things you touched on a minute ago, whether it's video surveillance, whether it's checking all of their social media, whether it's doing internet searches to see what else they're doing, whether it's running their credit report, possibly saying we're going to send them to an IME exam, although that's usually not done. It's more of the extracurriculars, the things that have nothing to do with your medical, but could be inconsistent activities of something that you're doing out in the public domain or something that's on your social media. And they are very aggressive in looking at social media, looking at websites, looking at, running these background checks on you, which unfortunately a lot of claimants unknowingly authorize the disability company to do that. Running driver's license background checks, looking at cars you bought, looking at loans that you've got and saying, well, what are all these activities? And trying to relate those back to saying, well, if you went on this trip or if you bought this car or if you did this or that, then how can you say you can't do your job? When one or two little events usually have nothing to do with the ability to do their occupation. So I think that's resulting in a lot of the frustration lately with these claimants. The other thing comes down to, you said, when someone calls you, even though you know already they tell you it's Guardian, you want to know, hey, is it individual or is it a group policy? And why does that matter to you? Why does that, you think, lead towards someone's opinion as to how they're going to evaluate the claim?
Yeah, going back to even what you said with regards to cars earlier, individual policies are almost like your luxury cars, and the employer provided are like your mass volume, domestic dealers. The service you get are going to be completely different. Same thing with these policies. An individual policy, if push comes to shove and you're in litigation, breach of contract actions, you get to depose their people, call witnesses at trial. What people think of when they think of lawsuits, whereas the employer provided side, it's governed by ERISA. We have tons of videos on that, and that's very, very pro-insurance throughout the majority of the country, vast majority of the country, where, if you are denied, you only get that one opportunity to appeal. Guardian ultimately in court doesn't necessarily have to show that they made the right decision, just so they had reasonable grounds to deny it. So in those cases, Guardian's really not at risk of anything. Realistically, you could win under an ERISA filed claim. And the worst day in court Guardian may have is just paying you the money they owe you. So there's really no financial disincentive not to deny. Where on the individual policies, there's a lot more financial risk when it comes to the denial. That's why you see that the level of review is done, differently, a little more professionally. It can be a heck of a lot more, involved. But there's risk, and because of that risk, they treat it differently. Where with ERISA, they're not really running any risks in a claim denial.
I think also with these claims, there are company philosophies in terms of, hey, if we have a reason to deny, we'll deny. And there's some that's it. Once you have that reason, deny it. I'm not going as far as saying that Guardian is there. I think they're on the path to that, unfortunately. But at the end of the day, it comes down to the claims person, potentially, who's reviewing, because they say they make the decision on the claim. They are the one who's supposed to. They have that authority allegedly, although we know if there's a higher benefit amount, it goes to a supervisor, and then if they're going to deny it, then usually they have to have, whether it's a DMO or whatever, some kind of internal additional person who, a manager or supervisor, has to support the denial. But if a person inside of Guardian wants to do the right thing on a claim, and even if they get a review back from another doctor, you would hope that they have the discretion to say, what that doctor's saying is inconsistent with the 4 doctors that are treating this claimant that have seen that claimant a total of 40 times, and this person's seen him once. And not necessarily just say, look, I disagree with them, but take the next step. Reach back out to that doctor and ask questions, as opposed to just saying, okay, this doctor said no restrictions, limitations. We almost never see a Guardian claim rep in particular go back to that particular person and say, well, I see your opinion here, but I'm a little confused. Why do you disagree with these 4 other opinions? Why do these 4 doctors say the person can't sit for an hour and you say they have no restrictions, limitations? Like, it's that extreme. It's not, oh, that person can sit for 4 hours, their doctor says 1 hour, and yet we often look at the records and there's no discussion whatsoever. And they're supposed to, if it's ERISA, they're supposed to communicate in the record all these communications in what's called their SOAP notes. but we almost never see that. So there's a lot that goes on, and not just Guardian, all of these companies behind the scenes, that they have this wall that these insurance companies can hide behind, because if it's ERISA especially, they know that we're likely not going to be able to depose them. So we can't dig into what went on. You know, we can only argue, you never did this, you never did that, and the goal is to make them look like they did an unreasonable review. So when someone gets denied, and if they have this arbitrary and capricious standard of review, often our burden is to prove that the company acted unreasonably. And so sometimes a unreasonable denial is to the benefit of a claimant, because it's easy to pick them apart and say, hey, you acted unreasonably, they failed to document all of these things, they ignored all this other information, and you can really tear them up for the benefit of our claimant, which is why our firm and you with these claims have so much success, because they rush to do them in an incomplete manner, and if you get the right lawyer, you can reverse them. So, you know, we just scratched on some of our views about it, but there's so many different nuances, from everything from the definition of disability to how you define occupation to limitations in the policies. I mean, there's a million things to discuss. So thankful that people share their views about what's going on, and most importantly for them to know that whether it's you, myself, or any of our lawyers, we're always available for a free consultation. No matter where they live in the country, feel free to reach us, and we're always going to answer the call right away.